From massive hidden bank vaults to the homes of key government officials, here are 9 of the most fortified places in the world. Number 9. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex. My first entry is more of a case of used to be one of the most fortified places on Earth, and technically it still is. You see, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex used to be a command center, one that was happily used by the North American Aerospace Defense Command, aka NORAD, and was once even used for U.S. space missions once upon a time. And when they built their command center, they made sure that just about nothing could get to them. I mean, the place is underneath of 2,000 feet of granite. Not even a super bomb could pierce it that easily. And the tunnel that leads to the command center is protected by a mix of granite and reinforced steel. So as you can see, they don't exactly mess around. And when you think about what NORAD does, they shouldn't mess around. Now you may be thinking to yourself, so why is it in the used to be category? Well, NORAD actually moved their command center to another location, and thus they don't use the Cheyenne Mountain Complex anymore. But the bright side is, if you ever want to see a command center like it, you now have the chance, because the mountain complex has become a tourist destination, complete with actual tours. Number 8. Greenbrier. In this modern age, there are many fears that can be determined to be on a global scale, but easily one of the biggest fears of all is the threat of nuclear war. Numerous countries, including the US, Russia, China, and even potentially North Korea, have nuclear weapons, and it's said that they can activate them with a moment's notice. So it shouldn't be surprising that each country has some kind of fortified building to help protect their key government officials. For the US Congress, that place is the Greenbrier. On the surface, it probably doesn't look like anything impressive, outside of the fact that it seems like a giant mansion. The building is 112,544 square feet in size. I mean, it's massive. But like all good things, you have to look under the covers to find the true value. For built under this impressive building is an equally massive nuclear door, one that's 25 tons in weight, and under that is a bunker that's fully stocked with supplies to keep Congress safe, should nuclear war ever happen. Excessive, over-elaborate, well, maybe, but better safe than sorry, right? Number 7. Haven CO. Now by now you may think that every building on my list is some kind of military bunker or command center or doomsday fortress intent on protecting certain people. But that's not exactly true. Some of the most fortified buildings in the world are ones that serve a different purpose, such as protecting data, for example. In Great Britain, there's an anti-aircraft platform called Haven CO. This place is just off the coast of the country and is actually 60 feet above sea level to ensure no wayward people can get to it. So what's inside? Well, I told you, it's data. The place was a massive data storage fortress, and it contained all sorts of things that the British government didn't want in the reach of others. And if you think about it, the place is a fortress both outside, inside, and in cyberspace. Adding to the security measures, only a select group of people are allowed in this place at any given moment. It includes people who are involved in the upkeep of the place and its systems, investors, whatever that means, and of course the royal family. But here's the kicker. Haven CO was eventually shut down in 2008, and nobody really knows why. But I would bet that if you tried to get in right now, you probably couldn't even get close. Number 6. Tumen River. But first, have you subscribed yet? And if you haven't, do so. And be sure to click that notification bell so you get more great videos like this one in the future. Now, I bet you probably weren't expecting to see a river on the list, but like in all things, context and location play a key role as to why this place is here. You see, the Tumen River is partially bordering between North Korea and Russia. So, if you're careful and plan correctly, you can get through it, making a small trip through China, about a mile walk, and then you end up in Russia. So, do you see why the place is so heavily guarded? Well, that's right. It's because the North Koreans see it as a place to defect, and personally, I don't blame them for having such thoughts. As such, the North Korean government has placed numerous guards along the river in order to ensure that those who want to defect don't get the chance. I find it really sad that people have to go through such things to try and get away from an oppressive government, but you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Number 5. Bold Lane Car Park. Now, if we're all being honest, there are a few things that are as frustrating as having to park in a parking garage. Am I right? I mean, if you don't get there in time, there's going to be no spaces, and if you're unfortunate, your car's going to get scratched and nobody will take responsibility. I'm talking from experience here. And if you're really unlucky, you could get jumped and have your car stolen. That is, unless you park in Bold Lane Car Park. Now, I get it, it's odd that a parking garage is one of the most fortified places on Earth, but when England made it, they truly didn't mess around. The place is built top to bottom to ensure that no one steals anything. First off, there are cameras everywhere to ensure that everyone in the car park is under watch at all times. Then there's the fact that there are bar-coded tickets that you have to use to get out. And should the worst come to pass, if someone does try to decide to steal something, there are panic buttons and alarms that someone can press to lock the place down and make sure the person doesn't escape. My thought on the place is simple. Why isn't every parking garage like this? Number 4, the Federal Reserve. Banks on their own are pretty fortified. I mean, after all, they're there to protect the money of the people, right? But when it comes to the biggest banks on Earth, security goes way up, such as the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. Ironically, it's not exactly known what is really inside the reserve, which is likely the point. However, rumors say that this place is home to 25% of the world's gold supply. That's a lot of gold. The vault that contains everything, both money and gold no doubt, is 80 feet below ground and is actually 50 feet below the sea level, which shows how much they want to make sure it's protected. As if this wasn't enough, though you likely won't see them, there are marksmen protecting the building at all times. So even if you do somehow get into the reserve and get the loot, you're likely not going to make it out. Number 3, the DMZ. Now, there are a lot of places in the world that can be defined as hotspots for various countries and the military. But without a doubt, one of the most heavily guarded, heavily fortified, and heavily watched places on Earth is the DMZ, otherwise known as the Demilitarized Zone that stands between North and South Korea. The war that happened between the two countries is one that can still be felt to this day, and the DMZ is without a doubt one of the lasting scars. It's not just a border, it's a fortification that makes the US-Mexico border look like a neighborhood fence, because this fence stretches through the entire 160-mile border of the two countries, and each side of the fence has razor wire that's apparently electrified. And let's not forget, there are people guarding this zone with their lives, for it's up to them to ensure that no one ever crosses at any cost. And if you're still not convinced, did I mention the landmines or the machine gun turrets? Still not sold? Well, here's another thing. The DMZ isn't just a border fence. It's 2.5 miles of land, and it's land of which kind has become a reserve of sorts for various animals. Animals that could kill you if you push your luck. Since its construction, there have been many incidents in the DMZ, and there'll likely be many more in the years to come, as tensions between the two nations seem to be unpredictable. Number 2, the White House. First and foremost, you'd think that a building that's viewed by people every day wouldn't be that safe, but you'd be wrong. Let's begin with the fence. It may seem a little basic, however, it's so well protected that even if you drove your car or any other vehicle into it, it wouldn't be damaged. Let's say you then climb over that fence. You're home free, right? Well, you're wrong. That's what the guards and the Secret Service are for, and they won't hesitate to take you down, as many unfortunate souls have found out. But let's say you make it past all of that. Then what would you do? Well, the alarm has likely been tripped, and the White House itself is bulletproof from the outside, and if you somehow do make it inside, you likely don't know where to go to get to the president or other key staff members. And the rest of the Secret Service, the military, the attack dogs, and more are all going to be waiting for you. Number 1. Fort Knox. If you want to cast your mind back to the classic James Bond movie Goldfinger, and if you somehow haven't seen it, you need to fix that immediately. The essential plot of the film was that the villain, Goldfinger, aimed to rob Fort Knox, or at least that's what he told people. And to convince his partners in crime, he revealed an elaborate plan on how he was going to do it. Now, you might think that this is just Hollywood hyping up the legendary gold vault, but in fact, he was really accurate in how well guarded the place is. That's because Fort Knox is a 109,000-acre army post, and at any given moment, there are 30,000 troops that are stationed there with the sole purpose of protecting it. But they aren't alone. There are cameras all over the grounds, along with numerous motion sensors to pick up anyone being sneaky. Oh, and there are landmines. Never forget the landmines. And all of that is just the first level of defense. There's electrified fences, massive walls to scale, and of course a 25-ton door that protects all of the gold inside. Oh, and I almost forgot. There's an elite fighting force next to the vault called the Mint Police. You really can't make this up. They're going to stop you dead in your tracks. So yeah, with all of that protection, you can understand why Fort Knox is the most fortified place in the world. Thanks for watching. Can you believe the lengths that people go to keep things safe? Let me know what you thought about these places in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on World 5.